I got my guy Lee Jones to help me do it. Lee.
Man, it's looking great. Like you said, we got some great topics today, man. A lot of things happening, in the world of sports, NBA draft, the Caitlin Clark thing. I'm very interested to see your take on it. Brandon Sorsby, we talked about that, but the follow-up to that, all of these NBA trades and everybody trying to jockey to catch up with the Knicks and the Spurs. So we got some hot topics coming today, man, and got some opinions. As always, I love being on the show. Because you and I, it's not like other shows. It's not scripted. We don't talk before the show starts. It's raw, it's real, it's unfiltered. And let's do it, man. Let's do it.
And we might as well do it just like Nike did. All right. And we are going to start off with topic number 1, which is the NBA is on fire right now as we have 2 blockbuster deals that went down. And I want to start this off and hit it from a couple of angles here, which is what did the Wolves and Heat blockbuster deal say about the demand for star talent in the NBA today? And then we'll follow that up with a even bigger question. But before we get to that part 2 question, Lee, I want to know your overall thoughts on both of the blockbuster deals and what does this say about the current state of the NBA when it comes to all-star level talent?
Well, I think everybody's trying to catch up with the Knicks and the Spurs. I think that's people looking at different ways to approach it and how do you overtake the Knicks as far as the team aspect of it. They're a unit, and teams are trying to jockey to see how they can really catch up with the Knicks. But moreover, in the Western Conference, it's like, how can you get past the Spurs and the Thunder? And you look at what Minnesota did today with LaMelo. It was strictly, Lil, about giving Anthony Edwards some help in the backcourt. Because if you remember the series, every time he came across half court, teams were blitzing him, getting the ball out of his hands, wearing him down to where they take him completely out of the play. Can't do that with LaMelo Ball right now on the team. He can be the primary ball handler. Ant can play off of LaMelo. So I think that was a good pickup for them. However, they traded away a lot of their big people. You sent Julius Randle packing. You traded Naz Reid. Where are you going to go and how are you going to compete with the size of San Antonio and the Thunder? But getting star players, as we talk about this, getting star players is where people are going. You look at the Giannis trade. Look, people can say what they want to say about Giannis. He had what he hasn't done the last couple of years. Look, if Giannis is healthy, and I know some people say that's a big if, I don't necessarily agree with that because when he plays, Lil, he's a 26, 27, and 12 guy, right? He's a 27 and 12 guy. You want that on your team. And you're right. Star power still sells. And that's what people are going for. And I think you're going to see even more as the trade deadline comes up. We think about Ja Morant. We think about Jaylen Brown, Zion Williamson. LeBron James. We think about all these names, Klay Thompson. We think about all these names, and these teams still look for star power. Now, does star power work? That's debatable. The right star power with the right blend of team works. And so that's where we're going. And it's always been like that. And teams are always going to do that. I was very, very surprised that Charlotte gave up on LaMelo Ball because they were so good down the stretch. Now, they fizzled out in the playoffs, but the second half of the season, they were like 37 and 16 or something like that. So I was very surprised that they gave up on him. But, hey, name and star power sells, and that's what these teams are trying to do.
I mean, you look at the past couple champions, right? Jalen Brunson and Karl Anthony Towns in New York, right? 1A, 1B. The year before that, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Jalen Williams, right? The year before that, Tatum and Brown. The year before that, Jokic and Jamal Murray. The year before that, even Giannis and Chris Middleton. Middleton was cooking. We can't forget about that and his contributions to that championship level squad. I know we just think that Giannis was possessed, which he was during that playoff run, but Chris Middleton did his thing. You know, you had LeBron James and Anthony Davis in the bubble. You had, you know, Stephen Curry and Kevin Durant. You had LeBron James and Kyrie Irving. I mean, the list goes on. You look at the past champions, there is a dynamic duo. There is a dynamic duo. Now, obviously, there are some very good teams as well that have depth, and that's how you really want to build your roster. Ideally, you want that 1A, you want that 1B, but you also want a roster that's not gutted out. You want a roster of depth that when you can throw guys out there and they're not doing well, guess what? You can switch up the rotations. And that's what I think the Knicks had. That's why I believe we are the most recent NBA Finals champion, because of that depth to go along with our two stars. And when you look at this as a whole, when you talk about the state of the NBA, there is a demand for star talent, because guess what? No matter how we try to downplay it, stars win. And both teams, and I'm talking about the receiving teams of these two stars, they took on a lot of risks here, but it was one last Hail Mary. Obviously, there's a lot of risks, and we could talk about the risks. LaMelo Ball only averages 51 games a season, right? And then he had to play his lowest minutes his whole entire career, 28 minutes, just so he can get to the finish line, right? Not to mention his off the court reckless driving. Okay, so to me, I look at you surprised that Charlotte gave up on LaMelo Ball. I think it's impeccable. I think it's the right move to make. Credit for them to realize that last year may have been fluky. You know, them threes they were shooting, you know, they was on fire. And granted, they still should be a good three-pointing team. They just added a very good shooting big man in Naz Reid, and they still should be good. But what they did last year, that little run was fluky. How? Because guess what? In that playing game, that second one, they got the brakes beat off of them. So credit to them for realizing that A, it was a little bit fluky last year, and B, LaMelo Ball is injury prone. So C, maybe we should try to sell high at his highest peak after his best season. That's what the Bucks should have did last year, right? With Giannis. They was a year too late. They should have traded Giannis last year, and instead, now he only had 1 year left on his deal. So guess what? Giannis got the leverage now, because he could use that 1 year rental as a way to scare off teams from trading for him. So they could have did this last year. They should have done this last year. Instead, they had the league held hostage, and they did the inevitable that was going to happen. But needless to say, I still think both teams won the trade. I think the Hornets won the trade. I think when you look at Naz Reid, you wasn't going to get Rudy Gobert. You don't want Rudy Gobert, because Rudy Gobert is probably on his way out of his prime, right? He's old. So at the end of the day, I mean, you look at the timeline, and the timeline for the Hornets, that wasn't going to work. Naz Reid fits better in the timeline. Obviously, they have a 3-point thing going on. He fits right into that as well. He could fire away from three. I like it. You wasn't going to get, and if you're the Hornets, if you're the Timberwolves, you didn't have to give up McDaniels. I think that's impeccable as well. So I think everybody pretty much won here. You look at things from the other perspective of the Bucks. Giannis is 31. His playing style, it doesn't age well in theory. He suffered multiple calf injuries as well over the last couple of years, and they were able to get a pretty decent, a package full of players that Miami somewhat developed, and play and picks, which is what you want in a Giannis deal when you're trying to rebuild. You don't want Jaylen Brown, right? You want players that you can develop that fits more in your timeline. Even though Jaylen Brown is still young, yeah, sure, he's proven. You want guys that you can develop from scratch, because it's going to be a long way from contention here. So to me, I look at it from all four phases, each side. I can see why the Timberwolves, and I can see why Miami made the gambles they did. It is a gamble. It is risk involved. I see why they did it. And I think that the teams that lost these star players also didn't do bad by the trade. I think they got proper compensation. So that's where I will leave it.
Remember this about Charlotte. Charlotte got a lot. They shoot a lot of threes. They got a lot of threes based off of LaMelo Ball's ball handling and his ability to penetrate and kick and his playmaking ability. They're going to miss that. Kobe White is not that. That's not. And they signed him to a new deal, but he is not LaMelo ball handling, breaking down the offense. So I think that's going to be missed in Charlotte. I like the pickup for the Timberwolves, but like I said earlier, because it alleviates ball handling from Anthony Edwards. But what I don't like about the Timberwolves is, you know, you can say what you want to say about Julius Randle, but he's a big body. He plays defense. They really have downsized their team by trading Naz Reid and Julius Randle. It'll be interesting to see what they do in free agency to bring some size back to that team, because you're playing against a Wemby and you're playing against the size of what and the Thunder drafted another big man. The kid from Michigan, he's 7'3", so that's size. So Minnesota's going to need some size to combat that. So I want to see what they do in free agency. Now, when I turn to Milwaukee, you know, Milwaukee got a lot of talent back. Milwaukee's not going to contend for a number of years, Leo. So that, you know, that is what it is. But they did get a lot of pieces. They can sort through how they want to build their team for the future. Look, Miami's good. I love Giannis and Bam together. I love what they have there. I love some of the other pieces that they have. Now they're going to have to get shooters around Bam and Giannis. Now that's might be a little difficult because they don't have a lot of salary cap. They have like $18 million in salary cap. But how they fill out that team will tell me how good the Bucks are going to be. But make no mistake about it, Giannis is going to be on a mission. Giannis, you know, he could be back into MVP status this year. And for all those people that say the Bucks, I mean, him going from the Bucks to Miami is not going to be a good deal. Look, there's not a lot of great teams after the Knicks in the Eastern Conference. Miami's setting themselves up, depending on what they do around them, of course, to be in contention in the East.
I mean, look, I think when you look at it from the Heat and the Wolves perspective, you know, starting off with the Wolves and LaMelo Ball. LaMelo Ball sees the court very well, right? He gives you some highlight passes as well. Edwards shouldn't see that much double teams at the opposition's own risk, because if you do double team Edwards and try to do that with LaMelo on the team, LaMelo could pick you apart. I don't advise that by any means. Look, the Karl Anthony Towns trade blew up in their face.
It did.
It blew up in their face.
It did.
And because of that, they took a step back. And this works the same. It's a similar pattern in the NBA that we see every single time. We've seen it with Giannis. We've seen it with Kevin Durant. We've seen it with Harden. We see it with all these good players, superstar players, very good players, whatever you want to categorize them as. After a trade or something happens, guess what? They become disgruntled. Then they want to trade eventually in the future. We know how this goes. And eventually it's going to happen. Eventually Anthony Edwards is going to want out. Now, maybe I'm looking, you know, through the telescope in the future, the next 2 to 3 years or whatnot, right? Maybe I'm prophesizing and whatnot. Eventually it's going to happen. But in the short term, they did what they had to do to prevent it from happening now, today. Yeah, because right now, you know, he's clearly upset. I mean, how could you not be? You watch Karl Anthony Towns, who was on your team, get traded, and it just blows up in your face. And you take an L at the L, and the guy that was a part of the deal you just sent off as a salary dump to Brooklyn. How could you not be disgruntled? So this was the Timberwolves saying, you know what? I'm going to make you happy for now. I'm going to throw caution in the wind and see how far we can go before the inevitable happens, because it's like a movie that I've seen the script 10 times already. I know how it's going to end. It's going to end just like how Giannis ended.
We have to see what they do in free agency. I think that there's still another level that Minnesota can go as far as piecing that team together, because first of all, McDaniels can't play the 4. He's not big and physical enough. He can't play the 4. So they're going to have to bring in some other pieces to fill out that team. But, you know, you get DiVincenzo back. That's a good, you know, that's an outside shooter. Hopefully he comes back from the Achilles at some point next year. But they're going to have to fill out that roster. But I do like from a perspective of freedom for Anthony Edwards and letting him be the great player that he is. I think picking up LaMelo Ball is going to make them more explosive offensively. It's just, what are they What are they defensively, and the size as far as rebounding and things of that nature. They have to fill that team out, and what they do in free agency is important.
And both of these teams wanted that superstar. Both of them
Yeah,
was trying to
absolutely.
get that star, and that's why I think the Bucks and that's why I think the Hornets did so well because they knew it and they used that to their advantage.
Absolutely.
Obviously, Pat Riley been trying to get his guy for a long time. We know him as a Godfather, as you can see here. Okay, Godfather Pat, and he been trying to get that guy. After LeBron James left, things got quiet. Guess what? They got Jimmy Butler. Then Jimmy Butler left. Things got quiet. They're struggling to get out of the playing game. And guess what? He brings himself back to relevancy. And it's just like the quote from The Godfather, just when I'm out, they pull me back in. That's what it is with Pat Riley. So he was able to outbid the Celtics and make a move for Giannis. And basically he's saying, you know what? Yeah, our team is not complete, but we'll figure it out. Miami has a history of developing guys in the draft. Some of the guys you never heard of prior to them getting into the NBA, and they out there playing playoff basketball. So at the end of the day, they have the coach, they have the proper situation there. They just got to continue to add on to the roster, and how they do that with their salary cap situation, that's TBD, to be determined. But Giannis and Bam Adebayo in the front court is devastating. And
Andrew Wiggins, it was huge that Bobby Portis came over with them as well.
Yep, and that's also a very underrated pickup as well.
They have
they added size. They getting bigger. Yeah. And obviously you see what the Spurs got over there in the rest of the conference. You see the Thunder trying to get bigger, and that's what makes it a little bit perplexing and unorthodox from the Timberwolves perspective, going smaller. But their idea is, listen, we're going to try to outscore you. We still got good defense. We still got Rudy Gobert to patrol the paint. We still got Jaden McDaniels that can lock you up defensively. Lee, I throw this question to you, and we can end off here. Who do you think is closer to, the top range, right? Because I don't believe that either team is tier one. So who would you believe is closer to tier one, Miami or the Timberwolves?
Oh, certainly it's Miami. And I base that on the conference, the teams that are above them in the conference, the teams that are right next to them. When you look at the West, you not only do you have San Antonio and the Thunder, you have Houston, who will get Van Vliet back. You have Denver. You have still Golden State, who can score with anybody now, still with Steph Curry. So you have a lot of teams. You have a lot of teams to go through. When you look at the East, Miami with Bam and Giannis and Portis and Wiggins, and unfortunately they're going to lose Norman Powell, but because they can't pay him. But Davion Mitchell is an ascending player. They have talent still on that team. They got to get more shooting. I think, especially when they lose Powell, get some more shooting. But Miami always develop people very well, and so there's people on that team, to your point, that we don't know anything about that's going to probably step up. But I like where Miami's at. Miami is setting themselves up, to be a contender in the East, because you don't see, other than the Knicks, you don't see a team that would scare you in the Eastern Conference. Cleveland certainly doesn't. None of these teams. Detroit still struggling. We don't know what they are. And so none of these teams scare you. So Miami's setting themselves up to be one of the top teams in the East, in my opinion.
I mean, look, if you're looking at strength of competition, the Eastern Conference is clearly weaker than the Western Conference. So Miami, by virtue of that, will have a better shot. But if you're looking at it, and look, I do think that Giannis being in Miami as a Knicks fan make me say to myself that, all right, we got to bring Mitchell Robinson back, to be honest with you. And I know that's going to be expensive, us trying to stay under the second apron, but obviously we don't want our front court to get thin. I think Mitchell Robinson is more impactful than what the league is giving him credit for. If you're not a Knicks fan, I think you tend to downplay Mitchell Robinson's impact, but he's very impactful. So I do think we should bring him back. But if you look at, things from an on-paper perspective, the Timberwolves has been right there. They've been closer than Miami was the last couple of years, the championship contention. They've just been a tad bit under, the Thunder and the Spurs, and they're right there. They're not there yet. Clearly, those are the two best teams in the Western Conference, but they right under there. And I think for them, they never had a point guard like LaMelo Ball with Anthony Edwards that can make life easier for Anthony Edwards. Now, I understand there's a question about fit and whatnot, but if they're able to make it work and you got two ball handlers that can score the basketball, and you still got Rudy Gobert patrolling the paint, to be honest with you, I would have to say them. I think they're more closer to the Spurs and Thunder if I'm just looking on how better that they gotten from this trade. If I am looking at things from the outside perspective, who's better as a basketball team, then yeah, maybe that's a different conversation. The East is clearly easier than the Western Conference, but I think the Timberwolves, I think their trade makes more sense. They still got Dante coming off the bench. They still got a bench. You look at Miami, you cannot win in the NBA playoffs without a bench. And I understand that I started off my take mentioning the two stars and whatnot that it takes to win a championship. But I also did say that those teams were deep because they were. When Denver lost their depth, they didn't repeat. You want to know why those teams haven't repeated? Why we haven't had a repeat champion since Golden State did it? Because teams lost their key pieces. The Nuggets lost Jeff Green and Bruce Brown. The Lakers lost Alex Caruso and Caldwell Pope. That's why you don't get the back-to-back, because depth, you can't bring everybody back. And that's one of the reasons why I'm watching my New York Knickerbockers closely. So I want to see who we bring back, because that's pivotal. You have to have depth in the playoffs, and right now Miami has none. So yes, TBD, they still can add to the roster, but if we talking about right now, I think the Timberwolves are a better basketball team than Miami.
In my opinion, the Timberwolves are nowhere near the Thunder and the Spurs. And I don't even think with Van Vliet back, they're close to the Rockets. I love the LaMelo Ball pickup. They'll be more dangerous offensively, but they have some work to do as far as now their defense will be affected, their rebounding will be affected, and so we'll just see how they fill that out. But that'll be my final word on that one.
Sports, politics, conspiracy theories. We are here to give you our unique perspectives on things happening in the world. It's the one and only The Real Lil on The Real Lil Show.